Great to see you all. Recording in progress. Got it. Let me just get rid of that one. Should I do that, Tyler? There we go. Hi, my name is Alain Barker. It's great to have you all here in the room, as well as everybody online. Some really wonderful people, including our distinguished president, Ron Barnes, is online. Look at that. Somewhere in Florida or something like that. So I've got to be careful about what I'm going to say about him here. Anyway, it's really fabulous to see you all. My name is Alain Barker, as I said. 2024, huh? It feels like a balanced year, 2024. So hopefully that's going to bring some balance to the world that we live in. I'm excited by so much that this year will bring us, and also daunted by, honestly, by the challenges, the trauma, and the situations that we find ourselves in around the world. So mindful of that, I'm also very grateful that the Rotary Club here in town, across the country and around the world, does so much good and helps the world find the way through some of the thickets that we find ourselves in. And so the quote of the day from Ron Barnes is, "Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does." And that's William James. With that, I'd like to invite John Dilts to join me here for his reflection.
Well, good afternoon. My name is John Dilts, and I'm the chair of your Peace Building Committee. So let's talk about peace. When I was young, and when I was concerned about my future, my mother told me not to worry. She said I could do anything I wanted to do, and so just go for it. So in the summer of 1968, I applied and was accepted to the United States Peace Corps. My assignment was to teach English in Western Samoa, which is, if you don't know, that's a remote island in the South Pacific, and was a good deal. But there was a hitch. My draft board didn't for a moment buy this kumbaya Peace Corps stuff. And so within days of my acceptance into the Peace Corps, I found myself on a bus headed for Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to begin 8 weeks of Army basic combat training. There would be no Polynesian island for me. And that's why I was especially interested in Lindsay Malici's talk a few weeks ago about Rotary's partnership with the Peace Corps. Under a memorandum of understanding, Rotary and the Peace Corps are partners in promoting humanitarian service and peace around the world. Rotary is a very big organization. In fact, it's much bigger than the Peace Corps. While the Peace Corps works in about 60 countries, Rotary works in about, more than 200 countries. When Peace Corps volunteers are assigned to places like Macedonia or Haiti or Greenland or Nigeria or Singapore or India or Japan or Brazil or other places, they're often instructed to seek out a local Rotary club as a first step to engaging with the people in the area. Rotarians around the world help to keep Peace Corps volunteers safe, supported, and connected. You may find it interesting to know that Rotary International also has partnerships with other groups, some of which you may know, like Habitat for Humanity, Toastmasters, and the United States Agency for International Development. They're all Peace Corps partners. And others that may be less familiar to you, like Shelter Box, or Mediators Beyond Borders, or the Institute for Economics and Peace. The Institute for Economics and Peace, by the way, offer Rotarians free online training in mediation, in conflict resolution. It is called the Positive Peace Academy, and it is one of your Rotary benefits. I know some of you have taken advantage of it, and more of you probably would if you had known about it. Rotary Positive Peace Academy. You can find it online, or you can ask me later about it. Or ask me about the Community Justice and Mediation Center's new online mediation and restorative justice course here in Bloomington, which begins on February the 1st this year. It's a remarkable thing, 40 hours of online coursework over Zoom. It offers all the basic skills you would need to start practicing mediation, conflict resolution, and restorative justice, either on your own or as a volunteer for CJAM. It's taught by IU Professor Emeritus Ed Greenebaum and Senior Community Mediator Nick Philbeck. But it's limited. It's limited to 16 students, and the price goes up the longer you wait to enroll in it. So if you're interested, you should act now. Because we, all of us, are part of a global peace building effort that includes many parties, locally and worldwide, we are an effective force for change. So let's work for peace. And thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I'm Hank Walter, and I am here to introduce and welcome the in-person guests of the club here today. So when I call your name, please stand so you can be properly welcomed by the club. Our first guest is Thomas Horrocks, guest of Jim Bright and candidate for House District 67. Next is Robert Wolford, guest of Wendell St. John. Our next two guests are Rotaract students, Ayo Aroa Shebe and Yaya Cater. Welcome. And a guest of Aaron Brewington, Britt McGaw. Welcome. Joy, do we have any guests online?
Hi, Hank, and hi, everyone. Yes, we have Jill Bond joining us online today, and the rest of us are Rotarian.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you so much. Okay, it's so great to have guests with us as always. And if you want to know anything about the Rotary Club, there are people around you who would, I'm sure, be thrilled to tell you. Rotary birthdays. We have a few here. We have Alex Crowley, January 7th. Chaz Mottinger is January 11th. And also Hank is January 11th. So happy birthday to them all. Okay, and Rotary anniversaries. We've got Michelle Cohen, who I saw coming in. She's been with us for a year. Congratulations. It's great to have you with us. Kyla, you've been with us for 12 years. Kyla Cox-Deckard. Roy Graham, very nice to have you with us again. A year. You've been with us for a year. And then Gillian Rich, who might be online. Is Gillian here? I think she's online with us for a year. Scott Shackelford's been with us for 6 years. And we've got Gus Shikalis, 8 years. And then Jim Shea, rounding it out with 12 years. So congratulations to you all. 12 years. Jim, did you know that you'd been with us for 12 years? Amazing. Congratulations. Okay, one quick announcement before we go into Happy Dollars. So get your little thoughts and money ready for the Happy Dollars. We're going to be doing that right now. But before we do that, let's keep Liz Irwin in our thoughts. Her father passed away on January 5th, and that was somebody who she was very close with. So with that, Happy Dollars. I think I probably will throw in my first Happy Dollars. I'll throw in 24 for the year 2024, and the gratitude that I feel about my two daughters, one of which now is in New York, and the other one's going to be going back to college in a week's time. So I'm just thrilled that we're headed towards this new year and look forward to all of your other happy dollars.
20 happy dollars for Teresa for doing the mic today. And also for our son, our youngest son, Luca, went back skiing with all his friends in Seattle. And my husband finally admitted that video gaming isn't all bad because he was able to keep those connections.
Kyla.
Hello, everyone. I will give 12 happy dollars in honor of my 12-year anniversary, but I also wanted to share that Lucy, a Rotarian in training who is currently in Girl Scouts, does have access to cookies. So if you need Girl Scout cookies, come to me.
Anybody online? Would anybody online like to tell us a happy dollar? Or two? Or
I
five?
will, Alon.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I am happy to announce, and I don't think she is now, Peggy Frisbee is in Florida as well, but I wanted to
Oh,
announce.
she's here. She's in the room.
Oh, she is there. She is still there.
She's here.
Well, then I am contributing $20 to Teachers Warehouse in honor of Peggy Frisbee, who has agreed to be our Rotary Youth Exchange Officer for our club. Woohoo!
Yeah, congratulations. Great.
Ellen, I'd like to contribute $13, please put it on my check, on my bill, for the efficacy of total knee replacement.
Oh, wow. Judy Schroeder is back with us. Yeah. Now, was it one or two knees? Oh, there was one.
This one's going to take a minute. I just had notification via Teachers Warehouse and member here that one of our former ambassadorial scholars, Tai Chi Wan, who is from Taiwan, had tried to get in touch with me again. And she'd managed to do it. She was very tenacious, and I'm delighted and excited to get back in touch with her. She and her now husband were married in our living room as an ambassadorial scholar.
Wow, that's great. Fantastic.
I'm glad to give $20, just sort of in a reverse thank you, which is I'm really excited that our club, along with the other two clubs, will be engaging once again in the youth exchange program. We really haven't done anything since the pandemic. And so it's, I think, a really exciting opportunity that we'll be hosting, hopefully, a student coming up here, and perhaps as our next years come up, that we will be able to send some students. Okay.
Fantastic.
It's a great, important program of Rotary to, you know, help with the things John was talking about, peace in the world and knowing each other as people. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
20 happy dollars. Ann and I learned that we're going to be hosting a couple of Rotarians from Germany who are coming for the total eclipse
Oh my
in
goodness.
April. We're meeting with them today on Zoom to plan their itinerary. So anybody want to
Wow.
help us host some wild Germans, let me know.
I am delighted to give $20 to celebrate that I'm flying out to New Mexico next week and returning with my daughter, who is bloomeranging to Bloomington after 11 years out west. She and her fiance are coming back to town. They've been in sunny Colorado for quite a while, and I've been avoiding talking to them about our weather lately, but I'm sure they remember.
That's great.
All right, welcome back, Kelsey.
Yeah, congratulations. Good. Okay, so with that, thank you very much, Teresa, for holding the camera and the microphone. And just while Teresa transitions, because she's going to be introducing our guest as well, I wanted to mention that we had a brief conversation at the beginning of the meeting talking about the weather next week. Apparently, it's going to be super cold. I only realized that. And so it may be that if it gets extremely cold, we'll have a conversation with Ron to work out whether or not we should switch to an all Zoom meeting, but that's very much to be discussed first. But just to let you know, we're in discussion about that. With that, Teresa Clare will introduce Bill Bennett.
Well, I met Bill Bennett at, we were in the same leadership Bloomington class in 2021. And if he missed a week, someone would say, well, where's Bill? And he would be in the Galapagos or some exotic destination. So since 2014, Bill Bennett has served as in the envious position as the Director of Alumni Travel at Indiana University Alumni Association. And if he ever leaves this job, I think the list is going to be a mile long for applications to replace it. But branded as IU Travels, the travel program at the Alumni Association brings together alumni, faculty, and students to continue their educational experience through international and domestic travel. Bill earned his bachelor's degree from the State University of New York at Albany and an MBA degree from Sage Graduate School in Albany. He has more than 21 years of experience in travel planning, having run the travel program also at Monroe Bank for 13 years in Bloomington. Bill has led groups to more than 60 countries and 48 states, including trips to Cuba and the Arctic Circle to see polar bears, and he currently serves as the Educational Travel Consortium's Executive Advisor Council, as well as a multi-university advisory council for the travel companies Go Next and Oceania Cruises. Bill is also an accomplished photographer, and I hope that we'll see, that you'll enjoy seeing some of his pictures during his talk, Journey to Antarctica, the White Continent. Please help me welcome Bill Bennett.
Thank you, Teresa. Right. Can everybody hear me with the lavalier mic? Everybody hear me? Okay, wonderful. Pick with the podium mic. I can do that. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. I was talking with my colleagues at work this morning and remarking that I'm so glad that it rained today and that it didn't snow. Normally I would be wishing for snow. I grew up in the Northeast and had skis and ice skates strapped to my feet at an early age. But I figured if we had 6 inches of snow on the ground outside today, you'd all be throwing things at me as I show you pictures of penguins and ice. So thankful for the rain. So we're going to jump right into this. This is probably something different than what you're used to here at Rotary. I'm going to take you on a journey to the White Continent and hope to be able to do that here real quickly in the 20 minutes that I have. And as you'll see, I'm using two computers here because one is just not enough to go through PowerPoint. And oops, looks like we're going backwards. Right to advance forward, correct, Tyler? Yeah, I don't know why it's hung up on the, yeah, it's going to the last slide, I think. Oh, all right, we'll try it again. Okay. Technology is so much fun, but this is kind of an overview of some of the images that you're going to be seeing today. And I calculate that with the 8 billion people we have living on planet Earth today, roughly 0.0009% will have the privilege to travel to Antarctica. Typically about 50,000 passengers a year go there today with modern technology and ships, but only 50 years of travel so far to the White Continent. And when that started, Lindblad Expeditions and National Geographic were using Russian icebreakers and taking just a few dozen people on an annual basis. So not a lot of people get a chance to actually visit the White Continent. So having the privilege of being there, I feel compelled to share my experiences with many audiences as possible, because I think it's something that you don't have in the forefront of your mind. We talk about peace and caring for one another and for the Earth. Antarctica is vital to our existence on planet Earth. And I'm hoping that my images today of the incredible landscapes and the wonderful wildlife will kind of inspire you to care a little bit more about Antarctica and the vital role that it plays in our existence here on planet Earth. So this is the wonderful group that I traveled with. I often get a chance to travel with different universities and scientific communities or different scientific organizations on a trip like this. And you can see that we had Duke and the San Francisco Zoo, Lindblad Expeditions along with us. And we're out in a Zodiac floating around in the ice. That was our mode of transportation. Getting off of our ship, those Zodiacs will hold anywhere from 8 to 12 people. They're reinforced rubber and have an outboard motor on that. And remember that these are inflatable boats. And that's key to something that you're going to see towards the end of the presentation. So Antarctica is the 5th largest continent, and it's larger than both Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, and all of the surrounding islands, and Europe. Everything else is larger. Now, if Antarctica were free of ice, its land mass would cover about 5.5 million square miles. In the wintertime, the Antarctic ice sheet expands, and it's the largest single piece of ice on Earth, and it will grow an additional 5.5 million square miles during the Antarctic winter, which is our summertime here in the United States. And it doubles the size of the continent during their winter. Now, last year, sadly, that ice sheet only grew about 80% of its normal size, and that has grave implications for us going into the future. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. This is an important treaty between countries. It was drawn up by 12 countries in 1959: Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, South Africa, Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States. In 1961, these countries officially signed that treaty, and it established that the region south of 60 degrees south latitude would remain politically neutral. So no nation or group of people can claim any part of the Antarctica as its territory. Countries cannot use the region for military purposes, to dispose of radioactive waste, and research can only be done for peaceful purposes on the continent. Scientific observations that are made there and results from Antarctica shall be shared amongst all of the countries that are involved in this treaty. Today, 55 nations have signed this treaty. So Antarctica has no indigenous people and no permanent residents. So I kind of Googled this real quickly while I was eating. I was wondering if there were any Rotary clubs there on the continent. And yes, there is one right near the geographic South Pole. I think it's a Spanish-speaking, I can't remember if it was Chile or Brazil that has it. No, Brazil would be Portuguese, but I think it might be Chile that has this research station. So there is a Rotary club in Antarctica. So there are 5,000 research scientists living there in the summertime, and they're spread throughout a few dozen research stations, and that number drops to 1,000 during the winter time. The largest station is the U.S. Station in McMurdo. That sits on a big ice shelf. They have a runway, and it is a branch of the National Science Foundation, and it has over 1,250 residents there in the summertime. So that's the largest research station. And you can see here we're pulling into the South Shetland Islands on the left. Over here, that is a Chilean research base. This is a Russian research base. So you can see that cooperation it happens right there. They're the next door neighbors. Now, the one thing that you don't see in this image is that we went past a research ship with a Russian flag on it that did have a rather ominous looking gun on the front of it. So Antarctica is a place of extremes. Coastal temperatures range from 22 degrees Fahrenheit in the wintertime and as high as 48 degrees Fahrenheit in the summertime. Now, we visited during the summer months. Summer there is really end of November through beginning of February before it starts to get really cold again. And the temperature ranges were from the mid-20s to as high as 48 degrees Fahrenheit. We had a 46-degree day. And at the higher elevations in the interior, the range is minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit and -4 in the summertime. So that's a big difference. Antarctica has 70% of the world's fresh water encapsulated in 90% of the world's ice. So that's why it is so important to our existence here on Earth. An interesting piece of this is that despite having all of this water on hand, they get an average of 2 to 4 inches of water in the form of snow a year around most of the continent, with the exception of the center part of the continent. It is one of the driest places on Earth and is considered the largest desert that we have on planet Earth, despite the fact that it's covered in ice. So it's not an easy place to get to. So here you can, I've put some mileage numbers up on the screen. You can see that we did this in 3 legs, flew from Indianapolis to Miami, from Miami down to Buenos Aires, where we overnighted, and then we flew down to Ushuaia, which is way at the bottom of Argentina, and picked up our ship there. And then 2 days crossing the Drake Passage, and finally ended up on the Antarctic Peninsula, which is part of the Antarctic continent. And And once on board the National Geographic Explorer, we set out to cross the notorious, and many of you have probably heard about this, the Drake Passage. It is known for some of the most fierce ocean conditions anywhere on our planet. It's a 600-mile open stretch of water between South America and the Antarctic Peninsula. And it's the shortest route to reach Antarctica, and taking anywhere from a day and a half to 2 days, dependent upon that weather. And of course, you see that the Drake Lake, that's a smooth crossing. The Drake Shake is not a smooth crossing. Unfortunately, we had a shake. And on our way down, we had 10 to 14 meter waves. So that is 36 to 46 feet of swells that we were going through. So yeah, a lot of rocking and rolling. You kind of felt like a human pinball machine walking down the corridors of the ship. And wind speeds ranged from 44 to 55 knots, which is 53 to 63 miles an hour. Now, we were prepared for the Drake Shake by taking our scopolamine patches for seasickness, and the ship had plenty of ginger and things like that to kind of help with the stomach sickness. Thankfully, I don't suffer from motion sickness, so I was okay and spent a lot of time out on the back of the ship photographing these birds, holding onto the railing for dear life as I did it. So yeah, and that was, I probably spent, I don't know, like 5-6 hours out there watching these birds fly amongst the waves. So is everybody taking their seasickness medications? Because here you're going to get a little bit of a chance to see what the ocean swells look like during the daytime. Coming up here, and I think I have to click one more time. So basically, I just set my iPhone down on the railing of the ship and filmed this for about 30 seconds or so. On the interior of the ship, they have ropes that go through the dining room. The chairs are all tied down. You could hold onto the ropes, one hand holding onto your dinner that you'd picked up at the buffet, and the other holding onto the rope. And of course, when you were seated eating your meal, you would watch your plates slide back and forth and had to catch them. But this is what it looked like. So. And of course, I'm up on a ship probably 4 or 5 stories out of the ocean. Every so often, you'd look out the window if you're in the dining room and you'd see nothing but water, and then 20 seconds later, nothing but the sky. So what do you see when you're in Antarctica? Mountains are one of the biggest surprises I think people have. And as you can see up here on the screen, this is what they call, we've had 5 different supercontinents throughout the history of planet Earth. And roughly 160 million years ago, there was a supercontinent called Pangaea, where all of the continents as we know them today were together. And you can see that South America's here, the Andes Mountains go all the way down like that, and then across into Antarctica. So the mountains that you see in Antarctica were once part of the Andes of South America. And that includes the islands that you will cross over going to Antarctica. So now I'm just going to kind of flip through some pictures here so you can see what these beautiful mountains look like. And of course, you can see a lot of the icebergs that are around. This is part of the Lamar Passage, which is along the eastern part of Antarctica. It's a narrow channel that's surrounded by these magnificent cliffs. Daylight. We had, I think the sun would start setting at about 10 in the evening, finish up at 11:30, real long sunsets. And then it was back up at 2, and it never really got dark. So these colors that we were able to see were absolutely spectacular if you were willing to stay up late or get up really early for that matter. So I didn't sleep much on this trip. But, you know, the sun would peer through the clouds. It was snowing in the mountains in that picture. And just the colors were absolutely amazing. There you can see this is snow falling. This also came as a surprise to many of us on the ship, snow-free land. And so we were able actually to get off. This is James Ross Island and do a hike. We climbed up about 1,000 feet over the course of 3 miles to explore. This was the first time that we made landfall on our trip. And that was a really enjoyable experience after being tossed around for 2.5 days. And here, my partner Mary Beth and I are up at the top of this little summit that we climbed to, holding on to each other so we didn't get blown off it by the wind. But you can see in the background, that's mainland Antarctica, and the mountains there are snow covered. So what happens is the prevailing winds, just like they do here in the United States, come from the west, go up over the mountains, drop their moisture, and then in the wake of that, there's usually a desert environment like we have in the desert Southwest. So it's the same situation here. And then this little person here, there's really great onboard lecturers on these cruises. That is Jamaling Tenzing Norgay, and you may recognize that name, Tenzing Norgay's son. He co-summited Mount Everest with Sir Hilary Edmond. So his son, who did the IMAX film, I think it was back in the late 80s, early 90s, did a couple of lectures on board the ship, and that was absolutely fascinating. But he said he climbed all the way up this and just said that was a nice little stroll for him. So the next thing that you see a lot of in Antarctica, and this is to be expected, is the ice. And here, one of our naturalists in a Zodiac, he fished out a piece of ice out of the water so we could get a close look of this. And this is what is known as pack ice, or pack ice. And it's, and this is versus fast ice. So fast ice is land-based ice, and land-based ice is in the form of ice sheets and glaciers, and that breaks off, and we see the big icebergs in the land. And then I talked about how the ice shelf around Antarctica would grow during the winter time, and that's the sea ice. So those are the two distinct differences between those. The fast ice is a lot older because it builds up over time in the form of glaciers and ice sheets. So he's got a piece here of the fast ice, and you can see how clear and dense that is. And because of the weight of the glaciers, that actually in larger scale shows up as blue. So like a lot of the glaciers that you see in Alaska, that are that real brilliant blue color, it's because the ice is so compressed by the weight of the glaciers. So here we are clearing through some sea ice, and these ships have reinforced hulls. And yes, every time we'd hit one of the bigger chunks, things would kind of shudder and you'd hear a thud, and we were waiting for our Titanic moment, but that does not happen because these are ice-rated ships that they take down there. And we're on our way to see an emperor penguin colony. Now, tabular icebergs, this is when a big, huge chunk breaks off from one of the ice shelves or glaciers in the Antarctica, and these can be as big as some small states. I mean, every so often you hear about a big piece of ice that breaks off. And in most cases, seeing these tabular icebergs is fine. This is part of the normal order. But when we have the bigger and bigger chunks breaking off, that's when it's becoming alarming, and we're starting to see that today. But these things are just, it's hard to put a sense of scale on how large these are. Some of them made our ship look so small. But here are some images. I'm up at 2 a.m. with, I'm the only guest on board the ship up with the National Geographic photographers taking sunrise pictures. Everybody else was peacefully sleeping, but I was rewarded with some amazing colors. And the ship captain kind of spun us through these bergs, and they would radio up to him and tell him that, yeah, no, we need to go back. Light was good on that one. Let's go back. So it's great to have photographers driving the ship. Here you can see some penguins. And every so often you look out and see these little icebergs floating by, and the penguins would be on top of them. And this is perspective. That is the National Geographic Explorer, 168 passenger ship, dwarfed by some of the smaller icebergs. And here, Zodiac. This was one of the camera people flying their drone. You can see the drone right there doing some drone footage for us. Again, just out cruising around the ice, get a chance to do that. And the old adage that you only see the tip of the iceberg, the water was so clear that you could see beneath it. And yes, very true. So it's unbelievable how large these pieces of ice are. And so as the tabular icebergs start to break up, melt, they roll, and then you start to get these fantastic shapes. They go from kind of a square block-like structures to really fanciful sculptures. And this is looking into the interior of an iceberg. So you can see how blue the water is. That's ice that's underneath it. And we had a chance to kayak amongst the icebergs, and that was a little unnerving, but a lot of fun. Water, it was cold, yes, 29 degrees. Remember, salt water has a lower freezing point than fresh water does. So water still stays liquid in salt water at 29 degrees. Another floating iceberg that we could kayak around, and they kept us away from them. So this is going to give you, this is a video that Nat Geo did of our ship while we were there. Real quick one, give you kind of a feel for what this looks like from the air. So this is just over a small island that we were exploring. Just absolutely fantastic landscapes. All right, and the last part. Everyone goes to Antarctica to see the wildlife. And first up are the largest mammals that make their way down to Antarctica, and these are humpback whales. And they take quite a long journey. They can be up to 60 feet in length and weigh upwards of 80,000 pounds and live for quite a long time. And many of these have traveled from Mexico to come down during the Antarctic summer to feed. And so here you see two humpbacks floating close to each other, something I had never seen before. They call this logging. And basically what they're doing is resting, and I'll explain that a little bit more. But kind of if you look closely here, you can see their pectoral fins spread out, and they're kind of partially asleep. Now, the water while we were there was incredibly clear, but in just a few weeks' time, going into late December, algae starts to form in the water as it warms up. And then comes the krill, and the krill is in great abundance down there, and that's kind of the beginning of the food chain for all life in Antarctica. And these whales travel so far to feed on this krill. Here you can see the kind of a blow of the whale catching the light, forming a rainbow, which I was so happy to catch. And now that we've talked about why the whales are there to feed, the logging, what they are able to do is shut off half of their brains while they're sleeping. So half the brain is alert, keeping them afloat, keeping them breathing. The other half is sound asleep. So this is how they rest up from that 5,000-mile trip before the krill start to show up. So the next, this is an important part of the food chain after the krill, and this is for the largest predator, which would be the killer whale that lives in these waters. And this is the Weddell seal. It's one of the largest seals that you'll see anywhere in the world. They can get upwards of 1,300 pounds, and they do spend a lot of time just kind of hanging out in the ice, soaking up the sun. It's rough business. That's a big yawn. And this is one of the things that really impressed me on close-up of their flippers. And you can see the claws that they have on that. And they use that to scour the bottom of the ocean to get their food, octopus, small fish, small crustaceans, krill, things like that. And they also can use those to put themselves up onto the ice. So they have some traction pulling themselves up onto the floating icebergs. So penguins, those are the rock stars of any trip to, this is why people go to Antarctica. And here you're looking at a colony. All of these little specks are nesting penguins. So there's tens of thousands of them along the shoreline there. Now there are 4 species of penguins that live on the Antarctic continent. And they are the Adelie, Gentoo, chinstrap, and emperor penguin. And here you see the smallest penguin, the Adelie penguin. And all of these guys are fun to watch. The Gentoo is kind of next in size. And they're kind of known by their orange beaks and the little white splotch here above their eyes. And there are a total of 18 species of penguins that are known to the world. And they all live in the southern hemisphere, including the Galapagos penguin, which is a surprise to a lot of people. The Galapagos is right on the equator, and they do have their own penguin because of the cool water temperatures there. And there's the chinstrap penguin. And here the chinstrap's hanging out with an Adelie penguin, but the chinstrap's known by its little strap here on its chin. Looks like it's wearing a helmet. And so Africa, South America, Australia, New Zealand, and other kind of countless islands in the southern hemisphere all have penguin populations. And this is the emperor penguin. And the sub-Antarctic islands, so if you think South Georgia Island, Falkland Islands, South Shetland Islands, and some of New Zealand's most southern and remote islands, Antarctica has the largest concentration of penguins outside of those islands. So here you see this whole side here, hillside, is just covered in nesting penguins. And 3 of the 4 penguin species need bare ground to nest on. They can't hatch their chicks on the ice, so they need bare ground. So here you can see that they've found this nice place that's free of ice to hatch their chicks, and that's the Adelie, Gentoo, and the chinstrap. Emperor is different. And then because it's covered with so much snow and ice, they have a secret weapon to melt the snow if they can't find free land like this. And this is their guano, or their poop. They are prolific poopers. And that warms up, obviously, the ice, and it frees it of it, and they get down to bare ground, and that's where they have their nests. And this kind of dispels the notion. You always see pictures of penguins that are free of dirt. No, that's not always the case. Here's a Gentoo mom with an egg. And one of the things that the guys do is they bring pebbles over to help the female to construct her nest. And this guy was not all that accurate. He was really trying hard. He'd come by and drop pebbles close to the nest and missed more often than he got there. But this is kind of how they build their nests. The guys bring rocks, and that can be a source of squabbles, because if they leave the nest, other guys come over and steal pebbles away and take them to their mate at her nest. And there's another. There's a guy bringing a rock, and this couple with their egg. Another nesting spot. And this is an Adelie penguin. And they would just make funny poses, and very adept at hopping around on the rocks. In fact, human beings, we are 60% efficient in our walking. So 60% of the energy that we expend in walking actually goes to the act of walking, 40% is wasted. When penguins waddle, 80% of their energy goes into waddling. And so they're much more efficient than we are. And then they travel like this. This is called porpoising. They'll come flying out of the air. I became obsessed trying to capture this. And then they'll also toboggan on the snow, using their flippers to kind of move themselves along in the snow. And this is how they greet each other. They're very formal in their greetings. They'll come up, they'll do a call, they'll bow their heads, and then they'll raise their heads up, and that's how they greet one another. And here you can see how close we get. They would leave the ship, our guides ahead of time, pack the snow down. We had to stay on the trail, and then the penguins would kind of come right up to us and walk by. What looks like footprints, those are penguin footprints, not human footprints. And then if you were standing along the shore, every so often you just see this explosion of penguins come flying up out of the water. And they kind of come up on land, check things out, look around, go on about their business, keeping an eye on us. And again, just to give you an idea of the backdrop of how incredible and how vast this is. Here, this image, you can see some penguins, some humans, and then a huge mountain behind them. And again, these are all penguin footprints. And another kind of sense of scale, right here, 10 emperor penguins, and they can get up to be 4 feet tall. Behind them, some of the ice, some of the fast ice that's coming off the continent, and then the mountains behind them. And it's just everything there is so vast, it's so hard to explain and give an appreciation, even when you're there, of how big and how insignificant you feel when you visit this continent. So this is the penguin that a lot of people hope to see when they go to Antarctica, and most people are disappointed. The emperor penguin, which is the largest penguin, needs ice to hatch its eggs, its chicks on, and they stay on the ice as the chicks develop. And usually by the time the chicks have their swimming feathers on, the ice will melt and they go off into the ocean. So they are out on the sea ice with their, and I don't know how many people have seen March of the Penguins, but that kind of really shows that very well. The great lengths they do to go way inland, well, not inland, but way into the ice flow to have their colonies set up, because that's the ice that's going to melt last. And then once it melts, they come off. But the ice is melting sooner and sooner. And we got to see these penguins because the ice is melting sooner and sooner. Good for us, not great for the emperor penguins. And this is from probably about a third of a mile away from our ship. You can see the penguin colony. All the kind of furry looking ones, those are the chicks, and the dark ones are their parents. We never will get close enough to the colony. And another shot of that colony. And every so often we'd see some individuals and pairs that probably had lost their chicks at some point out on the ice floe closer to our ship, including them porpoising through the water. So I saved the orcas for last because of an encounter we had, a close encounter. And there's two different types of orca in this region. There's the B2, and they refer to them as killer whales, which I thought was not politically correct, but all of the scientists kept referring to them as killer whales, at least these two subspecies of orca. And here you can see them kind of coming up for air. These are the B2. These are the smallest type of orcas that you'll see. And our ship captain did his best to kind of loiter in the area without disturbing the orcas. Whenever we'd see wildlife, they should have bumper stickers on the back of the ship saying that we break for wildlife, because they did in a big hurry. So we could sit there and watch. Here's one doing what's called spy hopping. They'll come up, stick their heads up out of the water to see what's going on, looking for seals. These are the telltale signs of marine mammals coming to the surface. They're called footprints. That's what you look for to know that there's a whale or a porpoise somewhere in the area. These are type B1 killer whales. They're just slightly larger. I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference, but our guides could. And we had a chance to see them actually swimming in the pack ice, which is incredible. And then keep in mind, we are in a Zodiac. It's an inflatable boat, 8 of us in this thing. Here you see this pod of 12 orcas coming towards us. Our guide said they might come check us out, and they got closer and closer until they went right under our boat. So this is our guide. He has an underwater housing on his camera. You can see one pectoral fin, the other pectoral fin. This is its nose. And this is a video that one of our people captured of this. Here, you can see the blow. They're very curious animals. And of course, this happened before all of the stuff was going down in Spain, where they were attacking sailboats and sinking the sailboats. Oops, we got stuck. Is there any way to? Let's see. Oh my God, oh my God. I apologize. It looks like the video itself is hung up. I can still hear the audio of it, but. Oh. That's okay. We'll move on, but that was kind of the highlight of us for the trip, to actually have a pod of 12 killer whales swim right under our Zodiac. And if I can get this advanced forward. I crashed it. No, that's all right. Why don't we go to questions? Sorry about the technology.
Yeah, I just have one question. And the one slide you said you were told to stay on the trail. Was that for safety?
Well, the snow is actually quite soft. The penguins are very adept at not sinking into that because of their webbed feet. But if we were to have walked on outside of those trails that were packed down, there were places you'd sink up into your waist. And what they were concerned about was leaving big holes behind that the penguins would fall into and get stuck in the holes. So they kept us, and if we did accidentally put a foot off one of the trails and step in, they asked us to fill up that hole to kick snow back into it. And if that was missed, all of our guides did a quick sweep going back before we got onto the ship to make sure all the holes were filled in. Any questions online?
I have two over
Okay.
here. First, is it realistic or possible for like a normal guy that's not a 1%er to go to Antarctica? And question two, so I've heard a lot about these like 40,000 strong penguin colonies that are just like completely collapsing.
Mhm.
I assume that is the emperor penguin, and also is that species how in danger, or how much danger is that species in?
Okay, so the first question about only 1%ers going it. So that's yes, these trips can cost anywhere from $8,000 a person all the way up to $40,000 a person. The one that I happen to be on, this one, I think a mid-level cabin, this included air from Miami all the way down to Ushuaia and back, was $14,000 a person in a double occupancy cabin. We're going to do one that flies over the Drake Passage and doesn't do, you don't have to go through all of the roller coaster ride. And that one's going to be, I think, like $8,900, so $9,000 a person, including that flight across the Drake. So it is expensive to go there. There are more and more ships coming online. You can do it cheaper. If you're to do it cheaper, you're on a larger ship. If the ship is 500 passengers or more, it can't go beyond the South Shetland Islands, or it can't land anywhere beyond the South Shetland Islands. I think they can cruise the Antarctic coast, but they're not allowed to make landfall. So, and that's just to keep this huge, we can only be, our ship was 168 passengers. They would only allow 100 at a time on shore. So they'd split the ship up into two, and one would go out in the Zodiacs and cruise around, and the other group would go on land, and then they'd switch. Penguin colony collapse. Yes, it's very, emperor penguins are considerably endangered. There was a big colony collapse. I think you were referencing that, of about 40 to 50,000 penguins that happened this last breeding season. I remember reading about that. And they keep track of these penguin colonies via satellite, which seems kind of crazy to see something so small. I mean, a 4-foot bird from satellites, but they look at their guano. They're actually big stains on the ice, and they can kind of tell the health of the emperor penguin colonies. The good news is they're finding new ones all the time. The bad news is they're seeing a lot of drop off from the existing colonies that they know about, and that's because the ice is melting sooner and sooner. So yeah, the emperors in particular are in big trouble. Krill fishing is the other thing. If any of you take fish oil supplements, read what the source of that fish oil is. In a lot of instances, it's Antarctic krill. And so they're kind of out on the perimeter fishing, grabbing the krill up outside of what that 60th parallel, 60th south parallel, and they're fishing around there, and they're pulling the krill out, which is wreaking havoc on the entire food chain there in that area. So pay attention to where you're getting your fish oil from. That's it for questions. I will hang out here if anybody else has got other questions. I know there's I covered a lot, and there's even more to learn about Antarctica, but happy to answer. I'll stay behind.
Thank you, Bill. That was really quite something. Really, really fantastic. And I'm really happy to know that you'll stay on for a little bit. By the way, just in terms of what's happening after this meeting, the International Committee is going to be meeting, and we're going to continue the Zoom session for those online who are part of the International Committee meeting. So I'm going to request that as we clear out of the room, that you just be as quiet as possible so that we can start our meeting. But definitely have a conversation with Bill. And in honor of your visit with us, Bill, we are making a donation to Big Brothers and Sisters, Big Sisters. And thank you so much for everything. Really, really great. Yeah, thank you. Let's thank our greeter, Dakir Abdullah. Very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Introductions from Hank, Zoom host Joey Harder, as always, wonderful. John Diltz, thank you so much for your reflection. Kyla Cox-Deckard, she's our reporter for the month. I'm going to be a reporter next month, so Kylie, go for it. Yeah. Teresa, Claire, thank you so much for everything that you did in the meeting today, including introducing our guest. And let's thank Tyler for being here to make it possible for us to have a hybrid meeting that didn't go wrong. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you. Yeah. So also, one other thing is that Geronimo Rotich is online. And Geronimo, I have a question for you. Are you in Kenya?
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're back. Okay. Because
I just got back.
I saw the picture behind, but I've been watching all your pictures. Your trip looked absolutely fabulous.
I just wanted
Okay.
to make you jealous. I got back.
That's good. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you in person as well. Next meeting will be next week, January 16th. We're planning to be here. We will let you know if that changes. And our speaker will be Abby Gitlitz. She's fabulous, speaking on Through the Looking Glass, a reflection on creating community through the glass, through glass work. With that, let's join together and share the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? And thank you to Natalie for helping us with the meeting too. Thank you. It was great.